Maya Thompson sat on her favorite bench in the new Earth colony's main spaceport. Her dark fingers moved across the surface of her tablet as she watched the crowd. Being deaf had taught her to see what others missed. She noticed how people moved, how they acted, and most importantly, how they changed. The spaceport was busier than usual today. Ships from Earth arrived every week, bringing new colonists and supplies. Maya liked to sit here after her online classes, watching the mix of humans going about their day. Her father, Dr. Thompson, worked as a scientist in the colony's research center, studying alien life forms. He used to take her there sometimes, but not anymore. Something had changed 3 weeks ago. Maya remembered the exact day because it was when her father stopped smiling at breakfast. His movements became different, like someone trying to copy her father, but not getting it quite right. He still made her favorite pancakes every morning, but he cut them in perfect circles now. The real dad always made them a little messy. Maya watched a group of security officers walk past her bench. Their boots hit the ground at the same time, like robots. Normal people didn't walk like that. She had seen more and more of them lately, all walking the same way, all moving their heads at the same angle when they looked at things. Her tablet buzzed. A message from Dad. Coming home late again. Don't forget to lock all doors and windows. Maya frowned. Her father never used to care about locked windows. They lived on the 15th floor, and the colony's force field protected all buildings. Something was wrong, but she didn't know what. A movement caught her eye. A woman dropped her bag, and everything fell out. Maya watched as people stopped to help. Some bent down quickly, others slowly. But 3 people nearby didn't move at all. They just turned their heads to look, all at the exact same angle. Their faces showed no expression. Maya opened her diary app and added this to her growing list of strange things. She had started keeping track after she noticed the changes in her father. The list was getting longer. Dad stopped smiling. Security officers walking in step. People not blinking enough. Same head movements. No one uses the drinking fountains anymore. Everyone stands too straight. Dad's handwriting too perfect now. The sun was setting, painting the colony's dome in orange light. Maya knew she should head home, but something made her stay. A new ship was landing, and the crowd was getting bigger. She noticed more of them now. People who moved wrong, who didn't act natural. Her father's research center studied alien life. Last week, she had seen him bring home a strange container, like the ones they used for dangerous specimens. He didn't know she was awake. He took it to his home office, and the next day, 3 more security officers appeared in their building. Maya's heart beat faster as pieces started coming together in her mind. She looked at her list again. These weren't just random changes. Something was happening to people, changing them. And it had started with her father. A new alert flashed on her tablet. The Colony News announced that Captain Jai-Ho Park from Earth Defense Force would arrive tomorrow for a routine inspection. Maya looked up at the darkening sky through the dome. She needed help, but who would believe a deaf 14-year-old girl? She stood up, clutching her tablet. As she walked toward the exit, she passed another group of the 2 perfect people. They didn't look at her. They never did. Maybe they thought because she couldn't hear, she couldn't notice things. But Maya saw everything. And tomorrow, she would make someone else see it too. She just hoped she wasn't too late. Captain Jai-Ho Park stood at the window of the approaching shuttle, watching the colony grow larger. His right hand touched the old scar on his neck, a habit he couldn't break. 10 years had passed since the first contact war, but some memories never faded. The colony looked peaceful under its giant dome. Sunlight bounced off the tall buildings, making them shine like silver. But something felt wrong. Jai-Ho had learned to trust his feelings during the war. They had kept him alive when logic failed. Landing in 5 minutes, Captain, the pilot said. Jai-Ho nodded. This was supposed to be a simple inspection. Check the colony's defenses, review security protocols, file a report. Easy work for a decorated veteran. but the message he had received last week bothered him. 3 research facilities had gone silent. Not completely silent. They still sent reports, but the reports were too perfect, too clean. During the war, Jeho had learned that perfection usually meant trouble. The shuttle landed smoothly. A group of colony officials waited on the platform, standing in a straight line. Their uniforms looked perfect, without a single wrinkle. Jeho's feeling of unease grew stronger. "Welcome to New Earth Colony, Captain Park," said the head of security. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Officer Lee." Jeho shook his hand. The grip was exactly right. Not too strong, not too weak. Wrong. People didn't shake hands like that in real life. "Thank you," Jeho said. "I'd like to start with a tour of the general areas. Get a feel for the colony." "Of course. We have prepared a schedule." "No schedule," Jeho interrupted. "I prefer to walk around freely. Standard inspection protocol." Something flashed in Officer Lee's eyes. Anger. Fear. It disappeared so fast, Jeho almost missed it. Almost. They walked through the spaceport. Jeho watched the security officers. Their movements were too coordinated. During the war, he had fought alongside hundreds of soldiers. Even with years of training, no group of humans moved that perfectly together. A child ran past them, laughing. One of the officers turned his head to look. Exactly 45 degrees. The officer next to him turned his head the same way, at the same speed. Jeho's hand touched his scar again. "The colony seems very orderly," Jeho said carefully. "We maintain high standards here," Officer Lee replied. His voice had no changes in tone. "The Earth Defense Force will be pleased with our efficiency." Jeho stopped at a viewing window. The city spread out below them, clean and organized. Too clean. Too organized. Where were the signs of daily life? The small messes that humans always left behind. "How many security officers do you have now?" Jeho asked. 342. "That's an unusual number. Last report showed 200. We increased security after recent developments." Jeho turned to study Officer Lee's face. "What developments?" "Nothing serious. Standard precautions." A movement caught Jeho's eye. A young girl sat alone on a bench below, her dark skin standing out against her white school uniform. She was looking straight up at him, her hands moving in a pattern. His combat training kicked in before his conscious mind recognized it. ... Dash dash dash. ... SOS. The girl's hands moved again, deliberate and clear. Not random gestures, real signs. "Captain." Officer Lee's voice had an edge now. "Shall we continue?" Jeho looked at the girl again, but she was gone. His mind raced. He needed to think, to plan. Something was very wrong in this colony, and that girl knew what it was. "Yes," he said, turning back to Officer Lee. "Show me everything." And he meant it. He would see everything, including what they were trying to hide. Maya couldn't sleep that night. Her father still hadn't come home. The lights of the colony shone through her window, casting strange shadows on the wall. She got up and walked to her father's home office. She wasn't supposed to go in there, but she had to know what was happening. The door was locked, but Maya knew where the spare key was hidden. Her hand shook it as she took it from behind the family photo. The photo showed her and Dad from last year's colony festival. They were both smiling. Dad didn't smile like that anymore. Inside the office, everything was too neat. The real Dad was messy. He left papers everywhere and always had half-empty coffee cups on his desk. Now everything was in perfect order. Maya turned on the computer tablet on the desk. It asked for a password. She tried her birthday. Wrong. She tried her mom's birthday. Wrong again. Then she remembered. The day they left Earth. That worked. The screen lit up with folders and files. Maya opened the most recent one. It was a video from her father's lab. Her eyes grew wide as she watched. The video showed a small, dark creature floating in a tank, It looked like a jellyfish, but with long, thin tentacles that glowed slightly. The date on the video was 3 weeks ago, the same day Dad changed. The next video made her hands cover her mouth in shock. The creature was out of the tank. It moved across the lab floor, then climbed up someone's leg. The person didn't move. They just stood there as the creature crawled up their back, and Maya couldn't watch anymore. She opened a text file next. It was her father's research notes. Day 1. First contact with the specimen. It appears to be a parasitic life form. Day 3. The specimen can attach to a host through the back of the neck. Day 7. More specimens found. They are intelligent. They can control the host completely. Day 12. The integration becomes permanent after 48 hours. After that, separation kills both host and parasite. Day 15. They are calling to others. More are coming. They want Earth. I can't stop them. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry. The last entry was from yesterday. The handwriting was perfect, not like her father's usual messy writing. All proceeds as planned. Host integration successful. Maya remains unaware. She will not interfere. Maya's heart beat so fast she could feel it in her throat. The creature in the tank, it had taken over her father. And not just him. All those people who moved wrong, who acted strange, they were hosts too. A sound from the front door made her freeze. Dad was home. She quickly closed everything and put the tablet back exactly as she had found it. As she slipped out of the office, she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Maya ran to her room on silent feet and jumped into bed. Her mind was racing. The creatures were taking over the colony. They were using people like puppets. And worse, they had plans for Earth. She thought about Captain Park, how he had looked down at the spaceport earlier. He had seen her SOS signal. She was sure of it. But would he understand? Would he help? Maya pulled her blanket tight around her. Tomorrow, she would have to find a way to talk to Captain Park. She had to show him what she had found. But she had to be careful. If the creatures realized she knew about them. She thought about her father's last real message. I'm sorry, Maya. I'll save you, Dad, she whispered in the dark. I promise. The next morning, Maya walked to the colony's main square. Her tablet showed that Captain Park would attend the colony's weekly ceremony there. She had practiced her plan all night, moving her hands until they were sore. The SOS signal was just the start. She needed to tell him more. The square was crowded. Maya found a spot near the front where the captain would surely see her. Her heart beat faster as she saw the strange security officers everywhere. They all stood perfectly straight, their faces blank. None of them looked at her. They never did. Captain Park arrived with Officer Lee and other officials. Maya studied the captain carefully. He walked differently from the others. Naturally, not like a robot. His eyes moved around the crowd, watching everything. When he touched the scar on his neck, his fingers moved without pattern. He was still human. The colony governor started speaking. Maya couldn't hear the words, but she saw how stiffly the governor moved. Another host. She waited until Captain Park was looking in her direction. Then she began to sign. Her hands moved carefully. SOS. Danger. Not human. The captain's eyes found her. He didn't move his head or change his expression, but Maya saw him watching her hands. He understood. She continued signing. Loud creatures. Control people. Help. Officer Lee turned toward the captain, saying something. Maya kept signing. Father taken. More coming. Earth danger. Suddenly, all the security officers turned their heads at once. They had noticed her. Maya's hand shook, but she kept going. 48 hours. Then permanent. Please help. The security officers began moving through the crowd toward her. They all walked the same way, like copies of each other. Maya saw Captain Park's hand move to his neck again, but this time he tapped it 3 times, a signal back to her. Maya slipped into the crowd just as the officers reached where she had been standing. She moved quickly between people, keeping her head down. The hosts were looking for her now, but they didn't know these tricks. They didn't know how she had learned to move silently through the colony, watching and learning. She made it to a maintenance tunnel, one of her secret paths through the colony. As she closed the door behind her, she saw Captain Park still watching the spot where she had been. His face showed nothing, but his hand tapped his neck again. Maya smiled for the first time in weeks. He had understood her message. More importantly, she had seen how the security officers reacted. They showed their true nature when they all moved at once. The captain had seen that too. She walked through the dark tunnel, her hand touching the wall to guide her. She needed to get home before the hosts realized she was gone. Tonight, she would sneak out again. She had seen Captain Park checking his tablet during her signing. She was sure he would find a way to contact her. Maya thought about her father as she walked. The real him, not the thing wearing his face. "Hold on, Dad," she whispered. "Help is coming." Behind her, in the main square, the ceremony continued, but something had changed. The hosts had shown their weakness, and a veteran of the First Contact War now knew they were here. Captain Jeho Park sat in his temporary office at the colony's military quarter. The sun had set, but he wasn't tired. His mind kept going back to the girl's signs. Her messages matched perfectly with his own observations and the strange reports he had received. His computer tablet showed a map of the colony. He had marked all the places where he had seen the two perfect people. The pattern was clear. They were spreading out from the research centers, just like in the First Contact War, when the enemy would take strategic positions first. A soft knock on his door made him reach for his weapon. "Come in," he said quietly. Hae-Yun Kim, a communications officer, entered the room. Jeho had worked with her before the war. She still moved naturally, and her eyes showed real emotion. She wasn't one of them. "Captain, I got your message," Hae-Yun said. "I've noticed strange things too. The communication patterns have changed. Everything is too organized now." Jeho nodded. "We need to find the girl from the square. She knows something important." "I think I can help," Hae-Yun said. She placed her tablet on his desk. "Look at this. Someone has been accessing the research files late at night. From inside the colony's living quarters. Building 15, apartment 1502. Jeho remembered the girl's signs. Her father was taken. She must live there. They heard footsteps in the hallway. Perfect, measured steps. Hae-Yun quickly turned off her tablet. The footsteps passed by without stopping. "The security patrols are increasing," Hae-Yun whispered. "They're watching everyone now, but not her. I saw how they ignored her at the square. They think being deaf makes her harmless." Jeho touched his scar, remembering the war. "That's their mistake. Sometimes the ones they ignore are the most dangerous." He stood up. "We need to reach her tonight." They waited until the patrol passed again. Then they left the office, walking casually like they were just tired workers heading home. The hosts were everywhere now, but they didn't look closely at people who acted normal. Building 15 was quiet. They took the stairs instead of the elevator. Fewer cameras there. On the 15th floor, they saw light under the door of apartment 1502. Jeho knocked softly. After a moment, Maya opened the door. Her eyes went wide when she saw them, but she quickly let them in and closed the door. Maya grabbed her tablet and typed quickly, "You understood my signs." "Yes," Jeho wrote back. "You're very brave. Now tell us everything." For the next hour, Maya showed them what she had found. Her father's research files, the videos of the creatures, the notes about the 48-hour limit. Hae-Yun's face grew pale as she watched. "This matches the war records," Jeho typed. "But these creatures are smarter. They're organizing." Maya typed back. "They're using the colony's communication array. I saw it in Dad's files. They're calling others." Hae-Yun's hands moved quickly over her tablet. "She's right. The array's power usage is much higher than normal. They're sending signals into deep space." Jaiho looked at Maya. We have less than 2 days before the latest hosts become permanent. Can you help us stop them? Maya's answer was quick and firm. Yes. I know this colony better than they do. I can move without them noticing. And I want my father back. Jaiho nodded. Then let's make a plan. Earth depends on us now. The morning sun had not yet risen when Hae-yeon Kim arrived at her communication station. She moved carefully, making sure to appear normal. Her hands typed at the exact speed expected of her. Not too fast, not too slow. The creatures watched everything now. Through her window, she could see the colony's massive communication array reaching toward the stars. Its lights blinked steadily as it sent signals into space. Signals calling for an invasion fleet, she now knew. Her computer showed a message from Captain Park. Ready? She sent back a simple yes. They had planned everything carefully during the night. Maya had drawn them a map of all the maintenance tunnels and secret passages she used. The young girl knew ways through the colony that even the security teams didn't know about. Hae-yeon began her work, carefully checking the colony's communication systems. She needed to look normal while searching for a way to block the creature's signals. Next to her, other communications officers worked at their stations. They all moved the same way now, like copies of each other. They were all hosts. A new message appeared on her screen. In position. It was from Maya. The brave girl was hiding in a maintenance tunnel near the main control room. She would watch and warn them if any hosts came close. Hae-yeon looked at the clock. In 30 minutes, Captain Park would start his inspection of the colony's defense systems. That would draw attention away from the communication center. They had to work fast. They only had today and tomorrow before the latest hosts became permanent. She opened the array's control system and began working. Years of experience helped her find what she needed. The creatures were smart, but they didn't understand human technology completely. They had left small gaps in their control. A movement caught her eye. Officer Lee was walking toward her station. Hae-yeon kept typing, pretending to do routine work. Her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. Officer Kim, Lee said, his voice too perfect. Is everything operating normally? Yes, sir, she replied, matching his tone. All systems are functioning at optimal levels. He watched her for a moment, then walked away. His footsteps were exactly the same length. Hae-yeon waited until he was gone, then sent another message to Maya. Clear. Maya replied quickly, Captain Park starting inspection. Security moving to south side. Hae-yeon began the real work. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard, finding the hidden commands that would help them take control of the array. The creatures were using it to call their fleet, but soon they would use it to warn Earth instead. A small light flashed on her screen. The sign they had planned. Captain Park had reached the defense control room. Now was the time. She entered the last command and pressed enter. Nothing seemed to change, but she knew it had worked. The array was still sending signals, but not the ones the creatures wanted. Instead, it was now sending a warning to Earth Defense Force headquarters. Hae-yeon sent one more message, Phase 1 complete. Now they had to wait. The creatures wouldn't notice the change for several hours. By then, Earth would know what was happening in the colony. But they still had to survive until help arrived, and find a way to save their friends and family before the 2-day limit expired. Hae-yeon looked out at the colony again. Somewhere out there, a young girl was their best hope for survival. And time was running out. Maya moved through the dark maintenance tunnel with sure steps. She had walked these paths hundreds of times before, but never with such an important purpose. Her small flashlight showed the way ahead, where pipes and wires ran along the walls like metal veins through the colony. Behind her walked 5 Earth Defense Force officers. Captain Park had chosen them carefully, all veterans from the First Contact War who still moved and acted like real humans. Maya led them toward the research center where her father worked, where the creatures had first arrived. Her tablet vibrated. A message from Hae-yeon. Security alert in Section 4. Hosts moving toward the array control room. They know something is wrong. Maya stopped and turned to Captain Park. She wrote quickly, "They're checking the array. We need to hurry." The captain nodded and signaled his team to move faster. They had practiced this route 3 times during the night, memorizing every turn. The plan was simple but dangerous. Reach the main laboratory, find the original creatures, and learn how to separate them from their human hosts. The tunnel ended at a metal door. Maya typed the code she had seen her father use so many times. The door opened silently into the laboratory's storage room. Empty specimen containers lined the walls, the same kind she had seen her father bring home that night. Captain Park checked his watch. They had less than 20 hours before the latest hosts became permanent. Less than 20 hours to save Maya's father and the others. The team moved carefully through the lab. Maya pointed to a locked door at the far end, her father's private research room. That's where the answers would be. Suddenly, Maya saw movement. She grabbed Captain Park's arm and pointed. Through the glass walls, they could see Officer Lee and 4 other hosts walking down the main corridor. They were checking every room. The team quickly hid behind tall storage units. Maya held her breath as the hosts entered the lab. She couldn't hear their footsteps, but she could see their shadows moving across the floor. Officer Lee stopped right in front of their hiding place. Maya watched as he turned his head, looking around the room. His movements were too smooth, too perfect. The creature controlling him didn't understand how humans really moved. The hosts began searching the lab. They were getting closer to where the team was hiding. Maya's mind raced. They needed a distraction. She reached into her pocket and took out her father's keycard. The real dad had given it to her months ago, trusting her to be careful. Maya waited until Officer Lee was looking the other way, then slid the card across the floor. It worked perfectly. The card hit a metal table leg with a small flash of movement. All the hosts turned toward it at exactly the same time, moving like puppets on strings. That was what Maya had been counting on. Their 2 perfect reactions gave Captain Park and his team the few seconds they needed. The soldiers moved silently around the hosts, reaching the private research room. Maya's heart beat faster as she followed them. The answers they needed were in that room. Her father's real research notes, not the fake ones the creatures made him write later. As Captain Park worked on opening the door, Maya watched the hosts through the glass walls. They were still searching the main lab, moving in their strange, synchronized way. Soon, they would finish their search and come this way. Maya looked at her tablet's clock. Time was running out, but they were close now, so close to finding a way to save everyone. Inside Dr. Thompson's private research room, Captain Park and his team worked quickly. Maya stood by the door, watching for hosts through the glass walls. Her father's real research notes lay spread across the desk, showing his discoveries before the creatures took him. "Found it," Captain Park whispered, holding up a small device. Maya moved closer to see his tablet screen as he typed. "Your father created this to study the creatures. But look at these notes. It might do more than that." The device looked simple, a metal circle with tiny lights. According to the notes, it could detect the electrical signals the creatures use to control their hosts. But Dr. Thompson had discovered something else. The signals could be reversed. Suddenly, Maya's tablet lit up with an urgent message from Hae-Yun. "Hosts gathering at main entrance. Hundreds of them. They know." Captain Park quickly photographed all the research notes. Maya pointed to more drawings in her father's notebook, showing how the device worked. They had only minutes before the hosts would reach them. The captain studied the device, then looked at Maya. He typed, "Your father was brilliant. This can break their control. But we need to get to the colony's broadcast system. We need to send this signal to everyone at once." Maya smiled and pointed to the ceiling. The others looked up and saw the maintenance tunnel entrance. She had memorized every path through the colony. Even now, the hosts didn't know about most of them. They heard footsteps approaching. Many footsteps, all in perfect sync. Maya led the team to the ceiling panel. Captain Park helped her climb up first, then passed her the device. One by one, the soldiers followed. Just as the last soldier pulled himself up, the door burst open. Officer Lee and dozens of hosts rushed in. But the team was already crawling through the tunnel, following Maya's lead. The maintenance tunnel ended near the colony's emergency broadcast room. Hei-yun was waiting for them, keeping the door open. They rushed inside and locked it. 10 minutes, Hei-yun said, looking at her screen. Earth Defense Force ships are almost here, but the hosts are breaking through every security door. They're coming. Maya took the device to the broadcast controls. She had watched her father work here many times during colony-wide announcements. She knew which buttons to press. Captain Park connected the device to the main console. Maya's fingers flew over the controls, just as she had seen her father do. The hosts would be here any second. The door shook with heavy impacts. Metal screamed as they tried to break through. Maya kept working, remembering every detail from her father's notes. The device's lights began to pulse. Now, Captain Park typed. Maya pressed the final button. The device hummed louder. On the screens around them, they could see the security cameras' views of the colony. Everywhere, hosts stopped moving. Then, one by one, dark shapes began falling from the backs of their necks. The creatures were losing control. The pounding on the door stopped. Through the window, they saw Officer Lee standing there. He blinked several times, looking confused. The creature that had controlled him lay motionless on the floor. Maya ran out of the room, her heart racing. She had to find her father. She ran through corridors full of dazed people and fallen creatures. Finally, she saw him walking slowly out of his lab, looking around in confusion. The real him, not the perfect, empty copy. Her dad. He saw her and smiled, a real, slightly crooked smile. Maya ran into his arms as Earth Defense Force ships appeared in the sky above the colony. They had done it. They had saved everyone. Her father held her tight, then pulled back to sign. My brave, brilliant girl, you saw what everyone else missed. Maya smiled through her tears. Being deaf hadn't stopped her from saving the colony. In fact, it had helped her notice what others couldn't see. Sometimes, the quiet ones saw the most.